All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another Lure Lab episode here, a part of the Serious Angler Network. And as always, I'm your host, the captain, Andrew Full. And today we have a really cool one coming from you. We have our guest coming on from above the border up in Canada, big time guide on Lake Ontario, mega bass guy. Like everyone knows him if you follow his page, Nick Kusavis. And we're diving into the dark sleeper. And full disclosure, this is a bait that I have relatively zero experience with. I've thrown it a little bit. I have yet to catch a bass on it, but a good buddy of both of ours was on my boat a couple weeks ago, and he jammed a giant, a 5.5, which is a really good fish on Erie. And became intrigued, and I had to message Nick and be like, we need to do a dark sleeper episode so I can get some confidence in this bait to hopefully start catching more fish for not only myself, but also my clients. And real quick, too, it'll be all linked down below. If you scroll through the description, the link right over to Omnia, click that link. It'll take you right in the Omnia page of the Dark Sleeper. So make sure you click that link. And anything else that we talk about that can be linked will be linked down below. So without further ado, let's get the big smallmouth master on here himself. And I believe he caught an absolute giant that I want to hear about. And I wonder what it was caught on. So Nick, how's it going, my friend?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Good. So we're gonna start it right off with a bang, right? You got was an 855. Was that
Correct.
fish on a dark sleeper?
Yes, it was.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Oh,
insane, man. I mean, it was so funny that fish when it hit and I set the hook, it was fighting exactly like a really big walleye. They stop and they shake their
yeah.
head. And I'm like, I got something that's big. I don't know what it is. And it came out of the water. I'm like, it's a smallmouth. It's a good one. And it's probably like 6 pounds. And then came close to the boat. Oh, it's probably a 7. And then we got in the net. I'm like, man, that's got to be an 8. My buddy was saying, I bet you it's a 9. And I'm like, I don't know. It was a little bit short. It was only 22 inches long, but just a beautiful fish. So we, took a couple picks and put it back in the water, and she swam away. And super. Like it's actually the third 8 I've caught. I have an 803, an 837, and an 855, and it never, never gets old, man.
Are all three out of Ontario, or were a couple of them on the Door County out of Sturgeon Bay?
One was on Simcoe, the other two were
Uh,
on Lake Ontario. Yeah.
I always forget about Simcoe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The big world-class smallmouth fishery that's only like 2.5 hours from my house. It's closer to go there for me than it is to go to the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah,
that
that's right.
crazy?
That's right. It is. Yeah. Because you
Like,
got to go all the way around the lake. That's the problem, right?
yeah, I have to go down the 90 and go up, let's say, like the 81 or the
That's right.
86 and
Yeah.
head north, and it's like 220 miles one way and then another 120 to get up. And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to get over to Simcoe one of these days and put
It's
in
a
some time there.
fantastic
But
fishery too. Yeah.
I know it's like a needle in a haystack, but one day I'll get up there and bring the boat, and maybe I'll hijack one of like your other Canadian friends that can fish smallmouth real well and have them teach me something. Or I'll just
There's
come up and fish with you for a day. Be like, you're hopping in my boat, Nick.
Absolutely. Anytime you let me know.
And we'll grab the old buddy Morgan and bring him along for some laughs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good dude. Good dude.
So yeah. But yeah, dark sleeper. So like for those who don't know what it is, besides it being a mega bass bait, what was the intention and design behind the dark sleeper, and ultimately what is its purpose?
Well, the dark sleeper really imitates a goby to a T. I mean, and the way it was built, we have a proprietary head inside the body that gives it a very flat bottom to it. So it never turns on you when you cast it and let it sink. It's always going to fall down on its belly. It won't roll on its side at any time. It sits down flat. And the cool thing about the dark sleeper is a couple things. I should have put one in my hand, but anyways, the dorsal fin actually hides the hook. The head is built inside the plastic, so it fishes like a jig. You literally tie it on and go. You don't have to add anything to it. They're super durable. I had some of my baits. I wish I had one here, but it is completely torn. You can't even tell what it is anymore, and
It's
they
so
were still
cheap.
eating it.
Oh
It
yeah.
was like that, like just crazy. So, but the thing is, it's easy. It's just cast, and there's so many ways you could fish it. You can fish it like a swim bait, just cast and retrieve it. But the way I love to fish it best is just to let it sink to the bottom. And basically, just like I fish anything, I'm trying to imagine what I'm trying to imitate and how it acts in its environment, right? So to me, the beauty of the dark sleeper is, I'm basically casting it like a jig, letting it sink down, and almost dragging it with a few pops where it kind of like lifts off the bottom and then falls back down. Gobies don't have any air bladder, so they can't swim up. They try and then they just sink back down. So that really does mimic exactly what a lot of these smallmouth are eating at this time of the year, and really all year long. And they
Yeah.
just can't stand it. They eat it. Hookup ratio, when you look at it, think that your hookup ratio is not great, but it's a 90% hookup ratio. Every once in a while in the summertime, it's a little bit different just because the fish fight so differently than they do in the spring or in the cold water period. I'll just take that like a pair of pliers and just bend that hook ever so slightly out, and that gives you a better hookup ratio.
Do you ever like trim the plastic guard around the hook at all to try to create more hook penetration? Because I saw
Yeah,
like a YouTube video probably like a year or so ago. I saw guys that would talk about trimming that down to help
yeah.
increase because the hook would sometimes get stuck in one of the like flaps on that dorsal fin. But just curious.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You could do that. I've never really felt the need to, but I will bend that hook out. In the spring, I don't even touch it.
Yeah.
It's literally tie and go. But in the summertime, I do try to bend that out. And if you bend that out, it will stick out of that dorsal fin. But it is a fairly weedless bait. You could fish it in many different situations. You could fish it in open water. You could fish it around scattered grass. I mean, it's not something, although some guys will pitch it into pockets and stuff like that, it's not something I'm going to swim right through like a heavy weed bed or anything like that. But, if I'm fishing edges or clumps of weeds and stuff like that, it's just a very versatile, easy bait to fish. And like I said, it can be fished in so many different ways, comes in three sizes, lots of different weights. That's the other thing too. Like you can get the small 2.4 and we make it in a 3/8, which is a fairly heavy, but because of that flat bottom, it tends to fall really slow, and it just has a natural appeal to it. It doesn't look weird, doesn't sink super fast or anything like that. So great bait.
Yeah, so like it's what quarter to 1 ounce. So you have what quarter, 3/8, half, three
Yeah.
quarters, and one, right? Or is it 5/8 and one?
No, so here I'll tell you just from my memory. So the 2.4 comes in a quarter and 3/8. The 3 inch comes in 3/8, half, and 3/4. And then the 3.8, the big one, comes in 3/4 and 1 ounce.
Mm, I
Yeah,
like
so
it.
you get lots of different sizes. I have fished it deep on Lake Erie back in the days, caught a lot of fish with it. But when I mean deep, I mean to me, it's like no deeper than 20 feet. If you got the patience for it, you can fish it in 30 feet. But man, that slow fall is going to take some time, even in a 1 ounce, to get down there. And because it promotes so much lift, it's kind of hard. You have to fish it dead slow to
Yeah.
keep it on the
You
bottom.
almost have to like twitch it like a football jig.
100%. So if you're target fishing, like if you're fishing a seam or like a small rock pile, absolutely you could. But to try and fish a large area, you just have to fish it so slow. You need a lot of patience to do that. But inside, really, to me, it shines inside 15 feet up to 20 feet. After that, I have other choices.
Yeah, fair enough. I like that. So, as you're throwing it like in that depth range, is there like specific things that you go to? Like, let's take all the Great Lakes, and we're not going to use one as an example.
Sure.
Let's say you're pulling up on a random Great Lake.
Mhm.
What area are you looking for primarily in less than 15 foot of water where you're going to go in your rod box, pull out your dark sleeper rod, and put a dark sleeper on and make your first cast? Like, what area generally would you look for?
So honestly, anywhere. If you're 15
Like
feet or in, that thing will work everywhere. But I'm always targeting some kind of cover, whether it's a rock line or scattered boulders, or maybe in the summertime you'll get that patchy weed. You can
that.
cover some water and throw it in there. And swim it, but swim it along the bottom. You know, in those cases, I might go something a little heavier. So if I'm in a 3-inch, maybe I'll go to a ½ ounce or a 3/4 ounce because I want it to drag on the bottom more, but, you know, have a little bit of pace to the speed of how I'm retrieving it to cover some water. You know, you can fish it around docks. It skips pretty good. There is like nowhere you can't, you know, under trees, if you're like shoreline cover, offshore stuff, it just is easy to fish. The retrieve can be kind of whatever you want it to be. You know, for me, it's like, you know, somebody will ask, well, what's your retrieve? Well, the retrieve with anything I do is really about the mood of the fish.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I have, right? You can take a tube and crack it hard or move it faster. And on other times, you're going to just drag it on the bottom, barely moving it, right?
Taking a snooze every cast.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, when it's cold, when the water's cold, man, sometimes you got to fish that thing so slow. And I, you know, tell customers fish it slow, and they're like, I am. No. I mean, like
Like
3/4. Yeah, like that
creeping,
slow.
buddy.
Yeah,
Creeping up, man. We're on a Swimbait bite out here, and it's the same deal. I'm like,
sure.
is this slow enough? I'm like, nope, slower. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, slower. And they're like, I can't. I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Slower.
You know what the
No.
beauty is when you talk about swim bait? So since forward facing sonar came
Yeah.
out, you know what I can do every once in a while, I'll check a customer's swim bait as he's swimming it.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I said slower. I can't go any slower. You're 10 feet off the bottom. You got to go slower than that.
Yeah.
So, you
Open your
know,
bail and check yourself, bud. Come
yeah,
on.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. You
Oh
can
yeah.
fish it faster if you want, but you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, like they're not chasing you. We need that water to hit 50 before they really decide to start chasing.
That's
So,
exactly right.
but anyways, like, you know, we talked about the 3 different sizes and the 5 weight options.
Mm.
What is the setup that you use that can cover kind of like the whole basis of those bait sizes? Is
So,
it casting or spinning gear? A little bit of both.
you know, if I'm getting into the 3.8 and a 3/4 or 1 ounce, that would be a bait caster for me. And I mean, the thing about it, we always talk about how it's similar to a jig, but your rod cannot be a jig rod. Like that's too fast for it, and you end up losing a lot of fish with it.
Hmm.
You need to think about more of that medium to medium heavy swim bait rod, something that's a little bit more parabolic in the belly, that creates a little bit more bend and allows the fish to suck that bait up a little better. And then your hookup ratio is better. Your hook set, again, it's not a jig. It's literally like a swim bait. You know how you load up
Yeah,
and then just pull up and then start reeling, and that's it. It's done. So it would be, for those big ones, it would be a bait caster in that, you know, chatterbait, swim bait style bait caster. Depends if you're target fishing. Obviously, you're going to go a little shorter. If you're open water, you're going to go longer. But my number one setup for generally all the other ones is the Megabass Levante 7.4 Enforcer, the rod that we really built for the Great Lakes. That's my tube rod. That rod is unbelievable for that bait. You know, 10-pound test, 12-pound test in some situations if you're around a lot of rock and stuff like that. But hookup ratio is great. Feel is great. Overall leverage and everything you need, that rod is the deal. I've had other guys bring rods that are, you know, 7.4, 7.3, 7.5, but they're just too stiff down that belly, and you end up losing a lot of fish. The Levante, although it's, you know, medium to medium heavy rod, it has a lot of bend in that belly and allows that hook to just get in the right spot, and it doesn't come out very
I
rarely.
like that. So is it straight fluoro, or are you braid to fluoro
No,
for like
always.
casting difference?
Yeah, I'm braid to fluoro, 10-pound, you know, 16-pound braid. It depends on the, you know, the makeup. I use a lot of that Japanese Veravast braid. It's very
I
thin,
really like the
slick.
fluoro. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the fluoro is good stuff. And then I'll go to, like I said, like 10 or 12-pound. I used to get real light with the line, but what I realized for most situations, you can get away with a little bit heavier. They don't really shy away from that 10-pound test. Because here's the thing, the dark sleeper, where you tie it, I always tell the customers where that knot is, that takes the brunt of the beating when you're bumping on that sharp, hard, you know, edged rock. And, you know, even though the line feels good, you know, and they'll check it. They're like, oh, my line's good. And then they'll make another cast, set the hook, and it breaks off because it's the knot that gets messed up. So it's better to go a little bit heavier. If you went to 8-pound test, now with the lighter stuff, I go 8-pound. But then that smaller 2.4 lighter doesn't beat the rock as hard as the half ounce or 3/8 in the larger body. So 10-pound, 12-pound test, and you're good.
I love it. So, I think we've covered just about everything except for the colors. And I think in the domestic market, which would be US and Canada, right? There's 10 core colors that you can buy it in. 10. Am I correct on 10?
You are correct. There's 10. Yeah.
And then is there any like crazy like JDM market colors in the dark sleeper that are hard to find or like limited releases? And then the next question, to double top of it, like if you had to take 3 colors, what 3 would you primarily have tied on and the best conditions to throw each color in?
Okay, so that's a lot of stuff. Let's start with this. That's okay. That's all right.
I should have spaced it out.
That's okay. If I miss anything, just let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 10 colors in the dark sleeper. JDM, I don't know of any right now. Japan has not been big overall anywhere in any manufacturer out there. They're just not a big bass thing right now going on in Japan. It's more saltwater, and now the BFS trout thing is really taking off down there. But Mega Bass is Mega Bass of America, Mega Bass of Japan, we're Mega Bass of Australia, and Mega Bass of Europe. Europe has some really cool, interesting colors if you can find them. I don't know if I could.
About Europe.
Yeah, they make some really crazy stuff, and I saw the colors, and I'm like, how the heck do I get my hands on that, and why don't we have any of those? Yeah. If I was to pick 3 colors for me, for what we do up here up north, it's pretty simple. It would be the Donko, which is like a very dark grayish brown with kind of beige spots on it and an orange-ish kind of belly. That one is, man, you can smoke them on that and anywhere. The Hannah Haze or the Haze, either one of those is good. The Hannah Haze I like a little bit better. It's got a little bit more of that goldy green sort of back to it. And then Wakasagi, like if you had those 3, man, it's all you'd need, and it's good. The clear shark is good in the spring if you're a bed guy. Maybe dark days, or you want to be more aggressive with it and fish it faster, just to get those reaction strikes. But those ones are good, man. It doesn't matter. And honestly, I never, I have customers that'll say, oh, my buddy's catching more. Can I get one of those colors? I said, trust me, it's not the color. It's just how you're fishing it. That's all it is. But that darker profile tends to get bit more often than not, a little bit more.
And it's probably because a lot of gobies have that darker brown top and a pale bottom. So you just need to have something that matches and that contrast. And I believe we as anglers get caught up in color way too much as surface level, right? Like we're above the water and it looks like this. And then you throw it down there in the bottom of the water and say in 15 foot, that color's changing, not totally to us, but to the fish.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we have to utilize more in our arsenal and understand is how much color palettes change when they're down below in the water.
So true. I think color is important, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is confidence that we have in a color, right? Some guys will swear this is the only color that'll catch fish. And I'm like, well, that's not true, but it might be true for you because that's the confidence. You fish it better. You fish it with more confidence. You pay more attention to what's going on. If I give you a color you don't know, you might make 2 casts with them. I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel this thing. And then you cut it off, right? So.
I don't know. I get that. It's funny. I got on a really good crankbait bite, and this is an offshoot story real fast. A couple weeks ago. And I'm like, man, I can't catch another fish off of it, like a different color, right? And I'm like swamping baits. And also I'm like, I went back. I'm like, what? Why didn't I get bit? I go back to like the most ridiculous color I could ever throw in the watercolor. And I'm like, slow down. Because as soon as I lost the one I liked, I started fishing a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I realized that. So as soon as I go to the super translucent bait in muddy water, I start catching fish. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But it was more of a retrieve and a reaction bite than it was an actual color they were keyed in on. And it was me personally taking my confidence out of a bait, even though I know it would work, because I'm like, it's not that color.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So
Absolutely.
it's funny the way fishing works. You can, and another way I could look at it is watch the Bassmaster top 10 at the end of the tournament, right? They're all holding up different baits, every angler.
Of course they are. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all confidence. Bass is a bass. It's going to
It-
eat.
that's right. I say this all the time. You're at some tournament where there's like 100 boats and you got 20 boats that did really well. Each and every one of them is throwing something different, doing a different technique. We talk about patterns. There's rarely a time when there's only one pattern going on a lake. There's many patterns
Right.
going on. And guys are getting them on different stuff, and a lot of that is confidence that they have. They've got them on that. So yeah, absolutely. It's good to be versatile and play around with a lot of different baits. And I think the more you do that as an angler, the better you get, because the more confidence you have in what you have in your quiver, and you're able to go to different things when one thing's not working. So, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think there's anything else that we need to touch on the dark sleeper before I let you get out of here and start packing to head over to
yeah,
Sturgeon Bay?
yeah. I think the one thing that I touched on that is super important is always think about the mood of the fish. Don't ever fish this thing exactly the same way. There are times where, like, I could tell you that fishing it ultra slow is the way to go, but in the summertime, sometimes I'll like throw it out there. I'll let it sink to the bottom, give it 2, 3 quick winds, and get that thing to shoot off the bottom, and then slowly fall down. Leave it there for a sec, give it 2, 3 quick ones, and then second you try to move it, that fish
Yeah.
followed it to down. In a second you tried to move it hard again, it attacks it. So just always playing around like we do with anything else. You're not fishing a crankbait the same speed all the time. You're always changing that. It's the same thing with a spinner bait or a swim bait or whatever it is. This is no different. Try and think of what you can do different, or what it's doing when you're doing different things with it, and it'll help you keep that catch ratio up on this bait. Trust me when I tell you, it's not a sales tactic. This bait catches fish.
I love it. And I think the proof is in the pudding for
Yeah,
if guys go over and look at your profile on Instagram, like I think
absolutely.
most of those fish this year have been caught on a dark sleeper, if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong. So
yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, there's other baits too, like,
Yeah, yeah,
there's a lot of good mega bass baits that catch a lot of good fish.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I know you know your way around just about every one of them. And I'm looking forward to get my first jerk bait fish of the year because I haven't caught one yet and it's starting to eat me alive.
Oh,
So,
I had a day out there alone, and I crushed them on it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just hard when I got customers, because you're taking off treble hooks all the time, and unless things really get crazy, I just stick to single hooks. But
yeah.
yeah, catches
Single
again.
hooks are better, especially if you don't know how they cast.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes. Yeah,
absolutely.
throwing a treble hook around with 3 guys in the boat maybe is not always the best.
Eh, yeah, I've been there. So,
Yeah,
like, there's only a few clients that I'll let throw a treble hook bait around me, and I
yeah,
let one throw a chatterbait last year, and he digged me in the back of the head.
yeah.
So, like, it's like this is why. Yes, you've been demoted to the back deck.
See you later.
So, well, Nick, I want to say thank you for joining us here on the
Thanks
Lure
for
Lab.
having me.
It's been a while since we've had you on either
Yeah,
side of the network, so
yeah, yeah.
glad to
Thank
hear everything is well and safe travels and go win that dang thing, would you?
I'm gonna try, man. I'm gonna be visiting stores. I'll probably only get like a day and a half, 2 days to pre-fish, but I'm gonna give it everything I got.
Yeah. Good luck over there, and we'll
Thank you,
chat
man.
soon, my friend.
Thanks. Thank you very
You have a
much for
good
having
night.
me. Take
Of
care. Bye bye.
course. All right, everyone. Well, hope you enjoyed this week's episode here on the Lure Lab, chatting about the Mega Bass Dark Sleeper. I know I need to add a bunch to my arsenal. I've had a couple clients get in my boat that are like, this thing is a real deal. And especially my buddy Adam, who I just had on the boat and caught a big one. And the price point isn't bad on them. The links are all down below. So we greatly appreciate it. If you click those links, and we also appreciate everyone who tunes in on a weekly basis. If you're new here on the YouTube side, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below if you've ever tried the Dark Sleeper. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform and they allow you to leave a review, please do so. That helps this podcast be seen by more fishermen like you and I like. And hopefully we're spreading great words to everyone who loves the sport of bass fishing. And until next Saturday, we will see you then.